Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we have talked about basal ganglia. First of all, we discussed its components, then we talked about direct pathway, indirect pathway, and then we have discussed about hyperkinetic pathologies, a clinical feature related with the loss of direct pathway and indirect pathway. So, very beginning, basal ganglia. So, basal ganglia is a misnomer. As everybody knows, we name ganglia to those structures and bodies which are present outside the central nervous system. But basal ganglia, all these structures present in the central nervous system, the telencephalon, diencephalon, brainstem. So it's a misnomer. Now we call it as a basal nuclei. So if we talk about it, their components, you can look at here. First of all, this is the caudate nucleus. And the parts of the caudate nucleus is head, body and tail. The head is attached with the lateral ventricle, and in Huntington's disease there is atrophy of the head of the caudate nucleus and dilatation of the lateral ventricle, especially the interior horn. And the tail of this caudate nucleus attached with the amygdala, which is a very helpful, or you can say the major player in the limbic system, but it also changes the body's response with the environment. It may change the heart rate, blood pressure, rate of respiration. And then we have another structure called internal capsule. Then we have external capsule, extreme capsule. In between the external and extreme capsule, we have a gray matter structure called colostrum. And then between the internal capsule and external capsule, we have lentiform nucleus. You can say putamen, globus pallidus externum and globus pallidus internum, or you can say this caudate nucleus plus putamen is called neostriatum. Putamen plus globus pallidus externum, globus pallidus internum is called lentiform nucleus, and this putamen, globus pallidus internum, externum plus caudate nucleus is called corpus striatum. Okay, if we talk about them, we have thalamus also, especially the ventrolateral nucleus have a role in basal ganglia, then subthalamus, then midbrain we have a biggest nucleus in the midbrain, that is substantia nigra, which have two parts, substantia nigra pars compacta and substantia nigra pars reticularis. Okay, let's discuss from the very beginning. Caudate nucleus, three parts: head, body, tail. Head attachment with the anterior horn of the lateral ventricle, tail attachment with the amygdaloid nucleus inferior to the inferior horn of lateral ventricle, and associated with Huntington's disease. Then we have globus pallidus externum and internum. Then we have thalamus, ventrolateral nucleus and interlaminar nuclei. Then we have subthalamus nucleus, then which releases glutamate, and it have a role in indirect pathway, we will discuss. And then we have internal capsule, you can see over here, then external capsule, then colostrum, the gray matter part, and the exact mechanism or the function of colostrum in basal nuclei is unknown. Then we have insula, this part of your spheres, this is the telencephalon. These caudate nucleus, internal capsule, this putamen, globus pallidus internum, externum are the parts of telencephalon, and this thalamus, subthalamus are the parts of diencephalon, and this substantia is a part of mesencephalon or midbrain, and this part is called insula. Okay, then we have substantia nigra, the pars compacta and pars reticularis. Then we have amygdala, and most importantly, we know amygdala as when we discuss limbic system, but it also have influence on it can change the body response with respect to the environment. It can change the heart rate, blood pressure, skin color, and rate of respiration also. And just we discussed that neostriatum is made up of caudate nucleus and putamen. Caudate nucleus is a C-shaped gray matter nuclei, mass of gray matter, and is present below to the lateral horn, especially the interior horn of lateral ventricle, and its tail is attached with the amygdala below the inferior horn. If we talk about its functions, okay, the function of the basal ganglia depends, because as we discussed, basal ganglia gets input from the cerebral cortex, and it gives output towards the cerebral cortex. So you can see from the cortex, from the thalamus, from the brainstem. From the brainstem we have serotonergic fibers. From the brainstem, fibers will go towards the striatum and release the inhibitory hormone called serotonin. And then we have substantia nigra. It gives input to the corpus striatum, What does mean corpus striatum? Caudate nucleus, putamen, globus pallidus internum, externum, and yes. And after getting input from all 4 parts, and the function of the corpus striatum or basal ganglia is it assists the voluntary movements, learning of the motor skills like drawings, paintings, singing, talking, and writing. Then eye movement plus emotions and cognition, in which we have judgment, reasoning, attention, and intelligence. So that was a review about components of the basal nuclei and its functions. Now we will discuss about direct pathway. Direct pathway. Okay, before direct pathway, there is a concept called disinhibition. We have discussed what is disinhibition. If one group of inhibitory neurons inhibits the other group of inhibitory neurons, this is called disinhibition. Concept of disinhibition. Okay, for direct pathway, as we discussed, the cerebral cortex will give input to this basal ganglia network and get output from the basal ganglia. From input and output related with the cerebral cortex, or from the sensory and motor area of the cerebral cortex, input will go towards the putamen part of striatum, and we know there is a corticostriatal fibers will release a neurotransmitter, that is glutamate, stimulatory or excitatory neurotransmitter in direct pathway. And after the corticostriatal fibers, as it will secrete the neurotransmitter, the stimulatory, from the corpus striatum, and then we discuss, okay, from the cerebral cortex, excitatory neurotransmitter will release always, that is glutamate. From striatum, either it is putamen, globus pallidus externum or internum, they will release GABA, gamma aminobutyric acid, inhibitory neurotransmitter plus substance P. From this subthalamus, it also releases glutamate. From thalamus, it also releases glutamate. The substantia nigra, it always releases dopamine. So just clear this concept in your mind. So once this globus, striatal part, that is putamen, once it gets excited due to the glutamate neurotransmitter by the corticostriatal fiber, the excited or happy putamen will give output towards the globus pallidus internum, and it will release increased amount of GABA, inhibitory neurons. So increased amount of inhibitory neurons will depress this globus pallidus internum, and this inhibited globus pallidus internum will release less amount of GABA over here, ventrolateral nucleus of the thalamus. So this less inhibited or will becomes more excited, because if there is less inhibition, then you are more excited. So from the ventrolateral nucleus of the thalamus, thalamocortical fibers will release glutamate towards the supplementary motor area, and this cerebral cortex becomes excited. So from, there is no fun in telling, this cerebral cortex will be excited, and from the cerebral cortex fiber will go as upper motor neuron, or after lower motor neurons, or you can say the direct pathway stimulates the cerebral cortex and then will do its action. Okay, the function of the direct pathway is it initiates the movement, initiation of the movements, plus it increases the cerebral excitation. You can see over here. Okay, then we can talk about indirect pathway. Again, fibers from the sensory and motor area input via corticostriatal pathway, releasing a neurotransmitter that is stimulatory, glutamate. It will stimulate the putamen, and putamen as get excited due to the stimulatory or excitatory neurotransmitter, it will give output to the globus pallidus externum, and it will release more amount of GABA as it was excited, and this increased amount of GABA released by here, this globus pallidus externum becomes unhappy because it is inhibited by the increased amount of GABA, and this from the globus pallidus externum fibers will go towards the thalamus, and this inhibited globus pallidus externum will release less amount of GABA over here, and from the thalamus fibers will go to the globus pallidus internum, and from the globus pallidus internum will go fiber to the ventrolateral nucleus. This pathway everybody knows, and from the ventrolateral nucleus fiber will go again to the cerebral cortex, but this time this more inhibited or unhappy ventrolateral nucleus will release less amount of glutamate over here, and at the end the cerebral cortex will be inhibited, and this there is no fun in telling, then the consequences of this inhibited neurons will go towards the upper motor neuron and lower motor neurons. Also, the function of the indirect pathway is the suppression of the unwanted movements and inhibiting the cerebral cortex. As we discussed, if I want to do this action, then what is going on? First of all, I need direct pathway to initiate the movement. Then I need indirect pathway to suppress the unwanted movement. If there is a loss of if there is a loss of indirect pathway, what will happen? Normally I can do like this. But if there is a loss of indirect pathway, what will happen? Because there is no suppression to the unwanted movements, I can't stop over here. And if there is a loss of direct movements, I want to do like this. If after the loss of direct pathway, I can do like this. I can't initiate the movement. As we discussed, direct pathway is responsible for initiation of movement and excitation of the cerebral cortex. And indirect pathway is suppression of the unwanted movements and inhibition of the cerebral cortex. Okay, then we have discussed in indirect pathway, direct and indirect pathway are both. From the substantia nigra, dopaminergic fibers will go towards the putamen. And there are two types of receptors for dopamine present in the putamen, D1 and D2. D1 receptors, after the conformational changes in the cell, they cause ketonic influx. And everybody knows when ketone goes into the cell, there is positivity is increasing in the cell, and the cell becomes excited, or you can say direct pathway. Dopamine is responsible for direct pathway or stimulates the direct pathway, and dopamine inhibits the indirect pathway. How? And as you can see from the nigrostriatal fibers, dopaminergic fibers going upward, and at the level of D1 receptors, you can see over here, if D1 receptors are excited, then it will stimulate the direct pathway as a ketonic influx. And in the indirect pathway, D2 receptors, they will do ketonic efflux, and they will stimulate the indirect pathway. Just remember this thing, the D for dopamine and D for direct pathway. Dopamine want excitation, or you can say help the direct pathway, and inhibits the indirect pathways. Totally opposite action of dopamine is having acetylcholine. You can see there is a balance of dopamine and acetylcholine. Okay, dopamine is coming from the nigrostriatal, from the substantia nigra by nigrostriatal fibers. Acetylcholine, where is acetylcholine? Acetylcholine is always present in the putamen, and acetylcholine is doing exactly the opposite action as compared to dopamine. Acetylcholine is stimulating the indirect pathway, you can see over here, and it is inhibiting the direct pathway. If there is a balance, normal. If there is a decreased amount of acetylcholine and increased amount of dopamine, then direct pathway will go up. Then the function of the direct pathway will be more. And if dopamine is less and acetylcholine is more, then it means indirect pathway is going up. And then we have the different fibers called palidofugal fibers. There are 4 types of palidofugal fibers. You can see over here. First one is ansa lenticularis, fibers from the globus pallidus internum to thalamus. Then secondly, we have fasciculus lenticularis, fibers from the globus pallidus externum to the subthalamus. Then third, we have pallidosephthalamic fibers, fibers from the globus pallidus externum to the nuclei of the subthalamus. Then lastly, we have pallidotegmental fibers from the pallidum, globus pallidus, to the tegmentum of the midbrain. There is no fun in telling that there are 3 parts of mesencephalon, midbrain, tectum, tegmentum, and crus cerebri. And tegmental part gets input or connection, have a connection or association with the pallidum with a fiber called pallidotegmental fibers. Then okay, we have discussed about the disinhibition components, functions also, direct, indirect pathway. Now we will discuss about some clinical features. First of all, hypokinetic disorders, or are disorders, a disorder in which there is a loss of direct pathway. If direct pathway is being lost, then indirect pathway functions will be more. So only one disease, that is Parkinsonism or Parkinson disease, in which direct pathway is lost. Especially there is one pathology that in decreased amount of dopamine in the striatum. There are 2 possibilities are there. Either the dopaminergic fibers, nigrostriatal fibers, are degenerated, or secondly the substantia nigra is damaged. Or you can see If substantia nigra is damaged, or this nigrostriatal fibers who is doing disinhibition, you can see this inhibitory fiber inhibiting the indirect pathway. So we were talking about if there is a loss of substantia nigra or loss of nigrostriatal fiber, then there is a loss of or deficiency of dopamine, because there is no dopamine from the substantia nigra or from nigrostriatal fibers. So decreased amount of dopamine in the striatum will lead to a pathology called Parkinsonism. And what is happening over here? Hypokinesia. Everybody knows direct pathway is responsible for activity, extreme activity, excitation of the cerebral cortex, initiation of the movement. If there is no direct pathway, then indirect pathway, always suppression, unwanted movement. There is hypokinesia, decreased amount of movements. Tremors, especially the pin rolling tremors, are called resting tremors. Then we have in Parkinson's disease mood, mask face, and stooped posture, then dementia, then tremors, hypokinesia, and rigidity. There are two types of rigidity. We have discussed cognitive rigidity and clasp knife rigidity. And cognitive rigidity is a rigidity which have a rigidity or throughout the movement. And clasp knife rigidity are the rigidity in which the rigidity or the you can say resistance in just the beginning of the movement, then normally, as we discussed about the folding knife. Folding knife is a perfect example for clasp knife rigidity. And in Parkinsonism we have a cognitive rigidity. Then we have stooped posture, depressed mood, dementia, and mask break plus shuffling gait. Okay, then we have post-encephalitic Parkinsonism. If there is a person having a viral encephalitis, due to that virus it may damage the basal ganglia, and if Parkinson's disease happened followed by viral encephalitis, that will be called post-encephalitic Parkinsonism. Then we have iatrogenic Parkinsonism, in which it is just a side effect of antipsychotic drugs, meperidine or other antipsychotic drugs. And if some people are addicted to antipsychotic drugs, as a side effect of antipsychotic drug, if the disturbance of the basal ganglia happens, that is called iatrogenic Parkinsonism. Then we have atherosclerotic Parkinsonism, and there is an elderly hypertensive patient can have a Parkinson's disease. That is called atherosclerotic Parkinsonism. Then hyperkinetic, if there is a damage to the indirect pathway, that means there is a more initiation of the movement, more excitation of the cerebral cortex, and there is no inhibition. There is no inhibition to unwanted movement. And then first of all, we have talked about Huntington's chorea. What is chorea? We have discussed purposeless, jerky, unwanted, repeated random movement of the limbs is called chorea. Huntington's chorea. In Huntington's chorea we have personality changes, dementia. Age related to the Huntington chorea is 20 to 40 years, and in Huntington's disease we have discussed the head of the caudate nucleus goes into atrophy, and lateral heart will into dilatation, because there is a chromosome number 4 which have a gene for Huntington protein, but there is an extra repeat in the nucleotide at the chromosome number 4 that will lead to the disturbance of the Huntington's protein, leading to the Huntington's chorea simply. Okay, uncontrolled, brisky, jerky, random, rapid, purposeless movement of the body. Then we have, due to the chromosome number 4 nucleotide extra repeat. Then we have Saint-White-and-Dance or Sydenham chorea, that is related to the females, especially the babies from 5 to 15 years old, and strong association with rheumatic fever. And then we have Wilson disease. In Wilson disease we also have a chorea. There is a deficiency of protein called ceruloplasmin, which is supposed to bind with the copper and prevents the adverse effect of the copper. But if there is a deficiency of ceruloplasmin, increased amount of copper in the blood, in the urine, so that increased amount of copper in the blood, if it deposited in the liver, lead to the liver cirrhosis. If it deposited to the basement membrane of the eye, then there is the outer ring, a kind of ring around the cornea, that is called recirculational ring. And if that copper deposited in the basal ganglia, especially the putamen, is a specific type where the copper attacks, or you can say deposit at the putamen and disturb the basal ganglia. So look at here, then what will happen? Parkinson chorea will happen due to Wilson disease. And we know treatment for the Wilson disease is a zinc acetate for the decrease the absorption of the calcium, copper, and we give penicillamine as a chelator. You can see Wilson disease, increase copper in the blood, decrease ceruloplasmin level. Then the increased copper will, if it deposit in the liver, it is called liver cirrhosis. Increase amount of deposition of copper in the basement membrane of the eyelid, Kieser-Fleischer rings. Then in the basal ganglia cause is chorea. That is chorea uncontrolled, risky, jerky, random, rapid, purposeless movement of the body. And treatment is penicillamine, that is a chelator for the copper, and zinc acetate decreases the absorption, or you can say oxidizes the copper and decreases absorption. Okay, and then we have athetosis. It is one type of movement. You know, you can see the chorea. You can understand the chorea as like Michael Jackson dance, and athetosis you can remember like Indian classical dance, Kathak dance, in which one type of movement is converting to another type of movement without any jerk. There is no jerk in athetosis, and yes, no jerks are involved. One type of movement is converted to another type of movement with a sequence. And then we have blismus, more association with the hypertensive patient and diabetic patients having more chances for blismus. What is blismus? If there is a destruction of the subthalamus, if the both subthalamus are damaged, it leads to the what is okay? Subthalamus is controlling the girdle movements, shoulder girdle and hip girdle movements. If the left subthalamus is damaged, then right side of the pelvic girdle and shoulder girdle will damage. And if the right side of the thalamus is damaged, then left side of the pelvic girdle and shoulder girdle will do abnormal movement. That is called hemiblismus. If both of the thalamus are damaged due to hypertension or diabetes or some other pathologies, then it is called blismus. Upper girdle and shoulder girdle both will show abnormal movement. You can remember this blismus as belly dance, Arabic belly dances. There is a violent hip movement, and okay, if we talk about dystonia, this is the slow prolonged movement and prolonged muscular contraction. If there is a muscular contraction of the back, muscles of the back, then person will go like this. If there is a spasm of the muscle of the neck, then the neck will go one side. It is called torticollis. And there is a other feature called writer's cramp. There will be spasm of the arm and the hand. Okay, dystonia having a slow prolonged movement, prolonged muscular spasm, and blepharospasm also. These are the blepharos eyelids, right? If the muscles of the eyelids are go to spasticity, then the patient will have a closed eyes. And torticollis neck spasm and writer's cramp. Muscles of the hand and arm will go into spasticity. That is dystonia. Then we have Tourette's syndrome. We have discussed that there is a Bollywood movie called Hichki. In actress was playing a role having Tourette's syndrome. It is associated with obsessive compulsive disorder. We have Q deficit deficiency disorder, ADHD or OCD. And it is having motor tics and vocal tics like hiccups and vulgar speech. Then we have tardive dyskinesia. Lastly, treatment of the in tardive dyskinesia, abnormal orofacial movement, abnormal movements, and fly catching movement like this. Fly catching movement with the tongue and orofacial abnormal movement, and treatment of the tardive dyskinesia as dopamine receptor blocker. So that was about few clinical features related with that dopamine, okay, related with direct pathway and indirect pathway. You can see over here, copper, increased amount of copper in Wilson disease is affecting this part, putamen. And if we talk about hypertension, diabetes, in blismus, subthalamus is involved. And in Huntington's disease, Huntington chorea, head of the caudate nucleus will be involved. So that was about basal ganglia. Yes.